Hello everyone, my name is Sidan Kim Yung with metric number BB3110391, and today I will be completing my marketing research individual task, which is my video diary by using Smart PLS. For this assignment, I need to analyze the dataset provided by my lecturer. Besides completing the analysis, I also need to demonstrate my personal skills such as planning, problem solving, time management, and reflection throughout the whole process. So before starting, I will show you my dataset that has been provided by my lecturer. So I will share my screen now. Right. So this is the dataset that has been provided by my lecturer. So in this dataset, it contains 203 responses, and without missing any values in the data sets. So which means that I can proceed with the analysis. Based on the data set, I saw that there are 5 constructs that I need to analyze, which are ATT stand for attitude, SN stand for subjective norms, PBC stand for perceived behavioral control, BI stand for behavioral intention, and the last construct is purchase. So today my plan is very simple. First, I will import the dataset into Smart PLS. Then, I will create the research model, assign all the indicators to the correct construct, and run the PLS algorithm. After that, I will evaluate the measurement model, followed by the structural model and bootstrapping. Finally, I will interpret all the results. Although I have learned Smart PLS before in the class, but I still feel a little bit nervous because I want to make sure every step is correct. If I face any problem during the analysis, I will try to solve them by reviewing my notes and checking my work carefully before asking for any helps. So my goal today is to complete the analysis independently and understand what each result means, instead of simply following the software procedures. And now I am ready to begin my analysis. So now I have to open the Smart PLS. And the first thing I am going to do is to import the dataset. So before I import the dataset, I have to click on New Project and name the project file as individual tasks. And then click Create. And then I will import the data file and selecting the Excel. So before importing, I check the information shown on the screen. So I can see that there are 203 observations with no missing values. All right, since all the questionnaire items use the 5-point Likert scales, so I will leave the measurement type as metric, which is commonly used in PLSM analysis. So next, I will click import. All right, and the dataset is successfully imported into Smart PLS now. So now I will click back and then click PLSM and save it. All right, so now I will create the 5 constructs, which are attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, behavioral intention, and also purchase. So I will select the first 5 construct, which is the attitude, and I will rename it. Right? And then I will make it smaller so that you can see the whole background. And then next is subjective norms. And then next is perceived behavioral control. right? And then next is behavioral intention. And then the last one is purchase. Right? So after that, I will arrange them neatly so that it can run smoothly later. Sorry. All right. So after creating the construct, and now I will connect them according to the research framework. So I will click connect, and then I will connect the attitude to behavioral intention, connect the subjective norm into behavioral intention, and connect the perceived behavioral control to behavioral intention. And finally, I will connect the behavioral intention to purchase. All right, so now I have to be very careful that during the process, because uh, I have to assigning all the indicators to their respective construct. So for all the indicators has already been uh, assigning automatically to its own construct. So now I am ready to run the PLS algorithm. So I will click on calculate and then click this, and then I will start calculate. Right. So the analysis has been completed successfully, and I can now evaluate the measurement model. So first, I will check the outer loadings. So I can see that all the indicator loadings are above 0.70, which means every indicator meets the recommended threshold. And this indicates that all the indicators measure their respective construct very well. So there is no need to remove any indicators from the model. So next, I will evaluate Chromebug alpha, composite reliability, and average variance extracted AVE. So we click construct reliability and validity. So here. So from the output, I can see that all the Chromebug alpha and composite reliability values are above 0.70, while all the AVE values are above 0.50. So this means that the constructs are reliable and the indicators are consistent in measuring the concepts they are intended to measure. So it also shows that the model has good convergence validity because the indicators explain a sufficient amount of variance in their respective construct. So after that, I will check the HTMT, which I will click here. All right. So I can see that all the values are below 0.85, which means that the constructs are clearly different from one another. Therefore, discriminant validity has been established and the measurement model meets the recommended quality criteria. So since all the measurement model results meet the required threshold, so now I can continue with structural model evaluation. So after completed the measurement model evaluation, I continue with the structure model assessment. So the first thing I will look is the VIF, inner VIF value. So I can see that all the values are below the recommended threshold, which means there is no multicollinearity issue among the predicted construct. This tells me that the independent variables do not have strong collinearity and are suitable for further analysis. Next, I will examine the R-square value. So the R-square value for behavioral intention is 0.660, which means attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control explain 66% of the variance in behavioral intention. This indicates that these three factors have a strong ability to explain behavioral intention in these research models. For purchase, the R-square value is 0.056, indicating the behavioral intention explain 5.6% of the variance in purchase. So this suggests that there may be other factors influencing purchase that are not included in this model. So now I will proceed to the final analysis, which is the bootstrapping. So I will click back the calculate and choose bootstrapping. So I will use the default settings with 5,000 bootstrap samples and start the calculation. So once the analysis is completed, I will review the path coefficient, t-value, and p-values to determine whether each hypothesis is supported. All right, for the first hypothesis, attitude has a significant positive effect on behavioral intention because the p-value is below 0.05. So this means that a more positive attitude is associated with a stronger behavioral intention. The second hypothesis is also shows a significant positive relationship between subjective norms and behavioral intention. Among all the predictor variables, subjective norms has the strongest effect because it has the highest path coefficient. This indicates that social influence plays the most important role in influencing respondents' behavioral intention in the model. So the third hypothesis confirmed that perceived behavioral control also has a significant positive influence on behavioral intention. This suggests that respondents who feel they have greater control over their behavior are more likely to have stronger behavioral intentions. Finally, behavioral intention has a significant positive effect on purchase, indicating that respondents with stronger behavioral intention are more likely to make a purchase. So overall, all four hypotheses are supported because every p-value is below 0.05. So these findings shows that the proposed relationships in the research model are statistically significant and supported by the data. So I am very satisfied with this result because the measurement model meets all the required criteria. There are no multicollinearity issues in the structural model. And all the hypothesis relationships are statistically significant. So now that I have completed the analysis, and I will move on to my time management review and final reflection. Right. So now I have completed all the required analysis, including the measurement model, structural model, and hypothesis testing. So looking at the time now, it is around 9:58. Sorry, okay. 9:58, sorry. All right. Okay. It's around 9:58 now. So overall, I think I managed my time quite well because I followed the plan that I made at beginning of the session. Instead of trying to finish everything at once, I focus on one step at a time. So I started by importing the data set, then built the research model, assigned the indicators, ran the PLS algorithm, and finally completed the bootstrapping analysis. So there were a few moments when I felt unsure, especially when checking the measurement settings and interpreting the statistical result. Instead of rushing through the process, I paused for a while, reviewed my work carefully, and made sure I understood each step before moving on. So although this took a little more time, I believe it helped me avoid unnecessary mistakes and gave me more confidence in my final result. Looking back at this assignment, I think the most challenging part was not using SmartPLS itself. The most challenging part was understanding what each statistical results actually mean. So at first, I thought that this assignment was mainly about using the software correctly. However, as I progressed through the analysis, I realized that understanding the meaning behind each result is much more important than simply clicking the correct buttons. For example, I learned why we need to check the outer loadings, composite reliability, AVE, HTMT, inner VRF, and bootstrapping, instead of treating them as just numbers in a table. So every result provides different information about the quality of the research model. There were also moments when I feel less confidence, especially when I was checking whether my model and indicators were correct before running the analysis. Rather than guessing, I decided to review everything carefully before continuing. This reminded me that spending a few extra minutes checking my words is much better than having to repeat the entire analysis because of a small mistake. After completing the analysis and seeing that all the required criteria was achieved, I felt relieved and more confident. It was very satisfying to know that all 4 hypotheses were supported and that the measurement model met the recommended standards. This assignment also helped me to improve several personal skills. I become more patient because I learned the data analytics cannot be rushed. I also improved my problem-solving skills by staying calm whenever I was unsure and checking this information carefully before making decisions. At the same time, I become more confident in using Smart PLS now because I completed the entire analysis independently, from importing the data until interpreting the final results. If I have the opportunity to complete another research project in the future, I would spend more time understanding the research framework before opening the software. I believe that having a clearer understanding of the model will make the analysis process smoother and more efficient. So overall, I am very happy that I am managed to complete this assignment successfully. So besides learning how to use Smart PLS, I also learned the importance of careful planning, independent learning, patience, and critical thinking throughout the research process. So I believe that the experience and skills that I have gained from this assignment will be useful for my future research projects, internship, and career. Thank you for watching my video diary. Bye-bye.